as for this one looked like it was a study. And my main beef with this one, without painting over it, I won't be painting over this, is the first of all is the contrast. I'm sorry, I do not have words right now. Is the contrast compared to this and this. Really, really, really high contrast, almost murky. The second thing is that fact that it was a study. It looks like a study, and then you turned it into a painting. This is my main problem. You guys like to make paintings because you're artists. But when you do studies, give up. Can you give up on the idea that you have to make a masterpiece out of every study that you paint? It can just stay a study. It can stay a study and that's it. It can remain a study for what a study is, which is just a study. It's just a moment of reflection on a topic in art, just a tiny little hour or two in your life. That hour or two doesn't have to be honored and crowned into an illustration that can be on your portfolio, because that's not what your level is right now. You are not at the level to work, therefore you're not at the level to have a portfolio. You have to build your skill, and then after a reasonable time has passed of learning and practicing, can you start building your portfolio? From what I see, a lot of you aren't ready for a portfolio, because portfolio means I am ready for work. I am ready to take on whatever project, and because I have enough, I am versed in the rules of the fundamental rules of art, the fundamental rules of realism. When are you ready? You're ready when you are ready to take on any project and work with someone else's vision instead of your own. That's when you're ready. You're ready when you can be hired to draw anything and everything. Meaning that you're willing to learn whatever it is that you have to learn in order to be hired as an artist. If you don't know how to draw horns, if you don't know how to draw a car, you are so versed in the understanding of form and structure, angles and perspective, that you can draw a car if you needed to. You can study. A big part of being an artist is research. And just because you drew a particularly well blended study of a human body jumping and punching doesn't mean that this is now a portfolio piece. Absolutely not. It's not a portfolio piece. I don't mean to sound mean or anything like that, but I'm really serious about this topic here. You are not an illustrator until you can illustrate. It's kind of rude to say it like this, kind of stupid to say it like this, until you can illustrate everything. Not really, until you have the confidence in yourself that whatever someone might throw at you, you can take it on seriously. That's what an illustrator is. When they're given a project and they can take it on, they can draw anything. They can do whatever the person requests of them, because they understand the power of research. They will do the research necessary, and after that they will get the proper references, and everything will come together. Because in their mind they have a bunch of rules in art that they will not break, and because they won't break them, all their drawings look good. All their art looks good, looks realistic. What looks good looks realistic. Basically, is what the view is today. Okay? So stop trying to make um, a perfect masterpiece out of every tiny little study you do. Just leave it alone. Make the background gray. Just sit there and study different poses. You don't have to post them on your Facebook, on everywhere. You don't have to post them. This obsession with showing people and updating people is slowing down your learning process. I mean, show it to people who will help you. Show it to people who will guide you. Of course, you have to have people show you where your mistakes are and they give their perspective on your work. But do not upload them as if they are masterpieces and you refuse to accept or some kind of critique in your work because that's a masterpiece. Oh, this is a study of the human self. I mean, no, please, none of that. I'm really serious about that lately. I've seen a lot of stuff, especially on the group chat, where they should be studies and you guys are making them into full-on pieces. It doesn't make any sense to me. Especially the portrait studies, you guys try to put them on your portfolio and put them on your websites. Those are not ready to be put up on websites. One, not only because you guys haven't had enough critiques on them and perspective of another artist on them, but they are studies. You cannot put up studies on as represent your it's like putting up a test score, applying for a job. It's like a pharmacist applying for a pharmacy and they're putting up all their test scores. That means nothing. What we want to see is your skill, your practice in the field, your actual masterpieces. That's what a portfolio is reserved for. So do not make this mistake, guys. Do not make the mistake of confusing your studies for masterpieces. They are not masterpieces. And the masterpiece is something that you spend hours planning. Planning is like the keyest thing about a masterpiece. You plan the light source, you plan the colors that you will be using, you build a palette, you build all kinds of stuff. And then after you feel like you're ready, you're researched enough, then you can illustrate as an illustrator does. They research first and then they go and jump in. Okay? So does everybody get what I'm talking about? It's really important. I don't want to see any more of these canvassed studies. If it's a study, leave it as a study. Make the canvas gray it out. You don't need to have this cloud fade, this drama. You don't need to dramatize your canvas. Just keep it a gray background. Try not to over-render. Maybe just study the gestures at one day. Use only lines. Another day start introducing grayscales. And after you've experienced enough with grayscales without over-contrasting and staying away from the muddy values, then you can start jumping into color. Once you get color, start jumping into color combination. Then after you get color out of the way, start studying detail. And then composition, what areas of the canvas should be detailed or not. And after you've done all of that and more, then you can start doing masterpieces. Then you can start doing those pieces that go up on your portfolio and represent you. You don't want a study to represent you because that's one moment in your history, one moment in your past that you knew how to do. And then, of course, I'm sure you guys are all advanced past it. It's like me posting the sketches from when I was 5 and posting but just because I drew it. It doesn't make any sense. That doesn't represent my skill level today. Post something that represents your skill level today, which is a full-on illustration painted from corner to corner. That is a portfolio piece, okay? Whether it's character design or concept art or creature or whatever it is, gray background, non-gray background, it has to be finished. You have to show the potential employer that you are ready to finish it. It's not a study. They don't want your studies. They don't want to have nothing to do with fine art. They want to create a game or some sort of thing for people to play. They want finished work. Okay? Okay. 1 second, please. Sorry, I just needed some water. Summary, think about your light source and plan your painting. Yes, and light source isn't the only thing about a painting that should be planned. Anatomy should be planned. Gesture should be planned. Every aspect, every physics aspect that is going on in the image should be considered. Planning doesn't mean you're planning a trip and you're finding the route to go through. It's not just that. It means you're actually pre-considering what might happen to you in the painting process. Will you have a stroke because you don't know how to paint a certain light source in a certain way? Do you think maybe that you might need a reference? Looking for references, researching, all of that is involved in planning a painting. I'm sorry, Seraphim. So you're saying we should have a progression page? Shouldn't have it where you can get personally inspired by seeing how you're progressing. That has nothing to do with the process of learning. If you guys want to look back and see how far you've gone, that is really good because that's motivational. It keeps you going. But what I'm talking about is don't misunderstand the definition of a study and the definition of a masterpiece. If you're doing masterpieces and you're comparing your masterpieces throughout the years, then at that point you're comparing two things that are very similar. If you're painting a study to a masterpiece, comparing a study that you did 1,000,000 years ago to a masterpiece you did today, that's no way to compare anything. Now, you can't really compare it. You can't really compare light source understanding, color understanding, because it's just a study. That's what I'm saying right now. A study is a study, is a study. Keep it like that. Don't try to present it. Don't try to stage it with a background. Just study for the sake of studying. That's where it all counts. That's where it counts. It doesn't count in how nicely you color anything. What counts is how much time you spend in the study. You study everything separately. One day study an eye, one day study a nose, one day study an ear, how the face looks in the three-quarter view. Have personal studies for everything. Don't wait for when you feel like painting to study, because that's how you slow down your work. That's how you slow down your process. Do you get what I mean when I say don't wait for any opportunity to draw to study? Study when you don't feel like drawing. That's the difference between a professional artist today and a student. They studied when it wasn't time to draw. They studied. And art is a school of thought. It is a school of knowledge. And so it needs its own personal study period. Just because you're not writing a specific essay right now doesn't mean you stop reading. Doesn't mean just because you're not doing a study on atomic weight doesn't mean you stop learning about atoms. I'm just trying to give you examples out of the real world here, compared to a tiny little art world that's a miasma of madness. This is something I'm really passionate about, this confusion here between studies and masterpieces. If I can spend the rest of the class, if I have to spend the rest of the class talking about it, I will, until all of you just remember it in your heads. Next time you do a study, please, please study for studying. Don't study because you're going to show your friends. Study because you want to improve your mind. You improve your understanding of form and structure and light source and lines and technique and all of that. Yes, study to learn, not to impress. Thank you. Okay. You do not need to impress, but to show something that has not been seen, and if it can be beautiful or distinct to you. Yeah, of course you can show, if you reach a point where your studies themselves are beautiful pieces of art, if you're doing these beautiful gesture lines and you have your style emerging slowly, slowly, you can start showing those to people, but they are not your masterpieces. Those won't get you hired. Take it from me. I work in the freelance illustration field. I'm a freelance illustrator, and I'm telling you, the work that I give, the sketches that I give are not enough. They are nowhere near enough proof of what I can do as an artist. And only the full illustrated landscapes and character designs that I do are the ones that get me hired, that get me jobs. You guys want to get hired, and the skill, if you get good at something enough, someone will pay you to do it, and that's the whole point here. You want to get good at it so that you can make a living out of it, because you love art that much, you have to do it every day for the rest of your life. Okay? So I'll close this one. That was all I really had with that one. For this image here, another one of them. Another one of those. Okay. This is an example of you're studying a face. You have dressed it up and presented it as a full-on painting. There is a reason behind the 14-day challenge. The 14-day challenge was something that I created so that you guys can focus your study on the features specifically. You focus all your attention on features. Maybe day 1 and day 4 you did different jobs on the eyes and nose, and one day the eyes looks better, one day the eye looks worse, but generally what I'm trying to say here is you focus on the study of the features. The study of the that's a key word here. You've heard that like enough times already. The study of the features is what the 14-day challenge is about. I know it's not about the 14-day I know it's not a 14-day challenge submission. I know that. What I'm trying to tell you is if it's not a 14-day challenge submission and you're waiting for when you feel like drawing a portrait to study the face. You're not studying the face outside of it. What I'm trying to say is you're not yet at the point where you need to dress the face with hair. You are at a point where you need to start studying the nose and the lips and face scale and sizes compared to each other, the sizes of the eyes, what looks beautiful. You need to start getting some references going. But should you study the features separately first or just do the challenge by painting the whole face every day? The painting the whole face every day is studying the features separately. That's what it is. You can do separate studies while you're listening to the lectures I have online about how to paint nose, eyes, and mouth. But for the 14-day challenge, the point is combining them all together and focusing on only those. That's why I say no hair. That's why I say grayscale. No, only a bust up until the neck and shoulders. Shoulders are optional. This is focusing your study focus, like it's like laser, and you're focusing it all, tunnel vision of study. This is what I want. Focusing on hair and disrupting your focus, sharing your focus with hair or clothing is what messes your learning process. It slows down your learning process. If you want to slow down, go ahead and do this. But if you want to expand and see the difference in just 14 days, you can see the difference from day 1 till day 2. If you guys don't believe me, take a look at the videos, at the website. I'm sure you guys all have it. It's over there if you guys have the link for the website instead of the live stream link. You can see the 14-day challenge is an actual tab here, and it shows the many students that actually took it on and stuck to it for 14 days and what happened to their understanding of faces. Okay, this is called focus study. Everything about the way they understood the face changed because they started considering different levels of realism. Every single day they studied for an hour or 2 hours, and they got to a point where they understood the face a lot differently. You're allowed to use references, but you don't copy references. That's the point. You can use a reference for how an eye looks. You can develop your style through your references. But it's not copying. It's not a study of it's not a photorealism. Okay? It's not studying a photo and then duplicating it. It's learning from developing a visual library in your own mind that you can pull information from and draw from. This is what you need to do. Major. This is what you need to do, because here you're lacking a lot in understanding of the eye, the nose, how the light works. You don't have a very specific light source situation, so the 45-degree angle light source, this needs to be understood by you and applied by you and employed by you. The size of the lips, like I can go and paint over it, but I'd be doing you an injustice, because I'd be fixing all your problems and telling you where to fix them and not really directing you to the real issue. The real issue is you're not spending enough time drawing only an eye. You're not spending enough time drawing only the lips or the nose. But I get the study of the features. A lot of time I get caught up in the whole instead of focusing on the specific things I need to work on. That's what my problem is here. That's what I'm telling you guys. Excuse me, not to do. I'm telling you guys that you don't have to turn every little one of your brush strokes into a masterpiece. Just let it be. Relax. Let it be just a study. If you're going to study eyes, you don't have to turn it into a face and then into a full-on masterpiece. That's a problem here. Just sit one day and just practice eyes. Just get a gray background going. Nice medium gray background. The reason why I say medium gray is because I don't want you to go too light or too dark, so I'm learning the middle. Which you chose very well, Major. And then get a brush going. And then just get a reference and just start studying the eye. Just start studying an eye, see what happens, and then try another one. Try one from the side. Okay? And then try one from the top view. What happens to the eye when it's top view? Okay? Start learning about your technique. When does your brush shrink? When does your brush get larger? This is all a beautiful playing field. It's like training. It's like a training field for like a soldier or something. Like this is where it's at right here in this gray background. This is where it happens. This is where you learn about your techniques. You learn about your habits. This is where you start learning about the kind of brushes you like to use. If you don't pinpoint your studying to one subject, you're going to share your studying with every subject, and then you're going to slow down your learning process. If you spend 1 week perfecting eyes, and then another week perfecting a nose, and then a mouth, and then you combine them 3 weeks later, the drawing that you drew of the face 3 weeks later is 100 times better than the drawing you drew 3 weeks ago when you didn't study any of those particularly. Do you get what I'm saying? Okay. No, I don't get tired. I really don't get tired of saying it over and over again. I don't. Because every single little student here, every single person needs to hear this. Sometimes they don't hear it and I have to repeat it in order for them to hear it. I'm concerned that if I don't say it enough, someone won't hear it out there. So I'm willing to say it over and over again. I don't mind. Did I get disconnected for a moment? Yeah? Did you guys hear me type? Because if you hear me type, then that was just Procaster being a retard. Okay. So yes, the study is where it's... Okay, let me give you one last little example. No, 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 no. Okay, this is an image that has particularly captured my interest. It's an amazing piece. It's an overwhelming piece. It's overwhelmingly awesome. Okay, let's look at this piece here. Let's pretend that we all want to be like this one day. Let's pretend that we all want to take on this kind of project and perfect it and accomplish and be successful. Every single square inch of this image has emerged from a study. Every single one. I won't pretend that maybe he had one illustration after another and he painted for such a long time and each and every single one of them was an attempted masterpiece, if he eventually learned all of these subjects. But every single one of these parts of this image came from a perspective, came from a study that he did. The whole perspective is a study that he did. Maybe the atmospheric fade and the arms that represented the grand scale of the elephant compared to the Monkey King, what came from a study of a landscape, and he understood the atmospheric fade and what that provides in a painting, what the illusion, what it turns into. The detail, he learned how to detail, maybe studying fabrics. It's not that he's a genius or he was born with this understanding. It's not that his visual library is infinite. It's that behind every single great masterpiece is a bunch of studying. And if you guys think that you're going to get a masterpiece out of every study, you're wrong. The artist I think is called Feng Hua, but that was his DeviantArt name before he deleted it, so I don't know. But I really hope you guys are getting me. It makes more sense now that it comes from you. I'm the type of person who really needs to break stuff down into more manageable parts anyways, and I can hear you. Okay, good. Think about everything. This kind of practice applies to everything. If you're a scientist and you want to learn how a fridge works, what would you want to do? You want to break down the fridge, all of it at once, lay it on your carpet in the living room, and try to put it back together again? No, you break it down piece by piece. You get the radiator or whatever it is, and then you break that down and put it back together, break it down, put it back together over and over and over again until you perfect the radiator. And then you go to the actual structure of the one part of the fridge, and then you break that down and then put it back together and break it down. That's the same thing with the eyes. You have to learn how to draw eyes and all these different beautiful perspectives. Then you learn how to draw the lips, then the nose, and all these. Break it down, put it back up, and then eventually you can put the whole fridge together. You can make the whole fridge out of, you even can make a whole fridge of your own. And not just that, after you learn the mechanics of the fridge, you can make a whole new thing, technological thing. You can make a whole new device just by learning what the fridge does. Do you know who did this? Do you know who did this exact method? Einstein did this. He broke down everything in his house and put it back together in this exact way. He broke it down bit by bit, studied it piece by piece. The radio, he broke it down and put it back together. The fridge in his house, he broke it down and put it back together. Even his dad's car, he pulled it apart and put it back together, and he understood the mechanics of it. And he taught his brain how to do that. He was more of a creative thinker than anything else, even to that point. So I know I'm giving you lots of metaphors, and I know I'm talking a lot, but you have to enter this mindset where you have to study, and you have to break things down and put them back together. I've reached a point where I've given so many paint-overs that I've started to feel like I'm doing you guys a disservice. And I'm fixing your problems for you and telling them where they are, relating to where the problem source from, but I'm not really poking at your your innards. I need to poke at you guys really hard in order for you guys to get that it's not me who's going to end up making you a good artist. It's you, and you guys have to study. You guys have to apply the amount of focus in your studies. Okay? I'll poke at your spleen, Shadow. Artists are visual engineers. Exactly. Thank you, Starch. but never got a pat in the back for it. Maybe because you didn't put them back together, Jay-Z. Did you put them back together after you broke them apart? Okay, so for this piece, I recommend you take on the 14-day challenge. I really do. The 14-day challenge, it's not like the godly 14 days that the great pilgrim, as a pilgrim walked through the mountains, and in 14 days she found the angel. It's not a sacred number. It's just a small example of what happens when you study every day, comparing to day 1 and day 14. It's a small little bite-sized example of how much you can change in just a year. Um, so that's the 14-day challenge. It introduces to you the power of study and the power of focused study. Okay, so I challenge you guys. It's a challenge. That's why it's a challenge. I challenge every single one of you to start studying something and uh, be your own be your own trainer, be your own coach. Make a drawing that you make for day one, and then after a certain amount of days, do the exact same drawing again and see how far you've progressed. In those days, there's a bunch of studying going on, and you might think you're not learning anything in those days, but you are. You have no idea how much you're learning. And you refresh, your brain does this thing every single night where it refreshes and reapproaches everything. It organizes everything that you've learned and solidifies the bricks. And then the day after, everything is solid, and you get it. You get why the eye has this kind of curvature in the corner. Okay, so I challenge you guys to start making studies and stop crowning and honoring your studies with a masterpiece or an attempted masterpiece. Just study for the love of God. And then after a year, start making those awesome masterpieces. Yes, I said a year. If none of you here are willing to spend years and years and years into perfecting your art, then you guys probably shouldn't be here. This is a small community, and it's not a class where you learn how to be a good artist. It's a class, it's sort of like a session, a therapy on how to deal with the process of being an artist. It's more like therapy for you guys. Okay? So this is just therapy. I'm just your therapist, trying to be a self-proclaimed therapist. So for your 14-day challenge, get rid of the hair. Find a good reference and how the face scales and how the nose compares to the mouth, the size of the nose compared to the mouth, um, the kind of values you're using here, which are the darkest areas of the face, which are the lightest areas. Okay? And just start bringing down that intensity. You'll realize if I could just have some of the people that did the 14 days, but they're off studying, you know. One of them got an internship in Spain, so I wish he could be here and talk about it. His name is Niall. Some of you know him. But the one thing that Niall learned, I remember him talking to me about it, is the amount of black that he used to use in the image, the amount of contrast that he used to use, and how it changed, how he learned that you can create so much depth with well-placed dark spots. And the dark spot of the eye compared to a little bit of darkness around the lashes does so much for you instead of just loading it with blacks and expecting like high contrast and expecting a nice image to come out. Okay? All of this stuff you learn with a 14-day challenge, and not just the stuff I tell you, but the stuff specific to you. The stuff that is unique to you that creates your style at the end of the day. Okay? So I challenge you, Major, and you're on my Skype, I think. I hope. If you're not on my Skype, get on my Skype. Istebrak.a. And I don't moderate the 14-day challenge anymore. I don't. Because I give up, I give my all, and then people just give up on me, and I'm there waiting for them. I plan the time, I give them an hour of my day streaming. I don't really charge for it. And I don't have that much time anymore, so I can't do that for everyone anymore. And you know, when you guys are hyped, everybody wants to do it. Everyone joins the gym in January. Um, but if you guys really do try, and I see someone who's already on day 14 and they're trying it again, I'm more than willing to help you and be there every single day for those 14 days. Yes, you can. Absolutely, Innova. That's what I usually recommend. If I'm not there, ask someone else. That's why there's that 300 person group on Skype right now. Everyone in there knows what the 14-day challenge is, and when you bring it to them, they know the rules. They'll tell you, oh no, you're not supposed to have hair. Don't worry about the lashes yet. The lashes are like the last 3 days of study. Freckles, leave that on the last day of study. Just focus on the form, all of that stuff, and take everything bit by bit. And they'll know what you're talking about. So just add my Skype if you want to take it on. But again, I'm not going to look at every single one of your days unless I know, unless you like prove to me somehow, take a screenshot of all the 14 days you did, and then I'll take a look at them after that. This image by Seraph. My problem with it, you talked about it as well, is the grayscale. If you grayscale it, you'll see the problem here. What I recommend usually is a background that is lighter than the character, not darker than the character. The reason why I recommend that is because you most likely are in a studio. You want to have, this is just thinking super realistic, like as if you're taking a picture of the person, and you most likely don't want a color that takes over the color of the clothing, which is a very neutral color. But because you guys are artists and you have to take everything bit by bit and slow down your learning process so it becomes efficient, I recommend you paint in grayscale from now on, Seraphim. You can paint in color. You know what colors are. I'm not going in your brain and erasing your memory of color so that you forget what color is. I am not depriving you of the beauty of color. I promise. I am actually giving value to color by telling you to work in grayscale. Grayscale gives you a whole new understanding of what it means to use color in your work. And it makes you appreciate every color there is out there because they're so unique, every single one of them, in all their different levels. But right now you're using them as if there's an example of what I mean. I can't use it because Hannibal said it, but yeah, basically it's a freshman pulling at a panty girdle. He doesn't know what the hell he's doing. He has no experience. And he has no idea, like he's just like, having fun. He has no idea what the fuck he's doing. He has no grace. He has no real, I don't know what word to use. He doesn't know what he's doing, basically. And I'm not trying to say you don't know what you're doing. But watch Silence of the Lambs. You do have this, you're misunderstanding, I mean, like the black here, that's happening with the red. It's causing this intense saturation line right over here. And then you have the yellows here, and then you have the light source. But then the blacks here don't seem to have that. This is not only a misunderstanding of shading, it's a misunderstanding of color. The saturation line doesn't happen unless it's like an organic, it's kind of reminding me of skin. So what you need to do is rethink the light source, rethink the values that you're using here, and to understand what's happening with the color, you have to start grayscaling it so you know what the light source is doing to that area before the color is even considered. Really, really super high contrast. Your skin isn't dark enough for the room. It's like it's from a different room. It's like it has a light source behind it. Or a light, like the skin is glowing whenever you paint skin, I've noticed. You need to bring that down. One really good example of an artist who really knows what he's doing with the color is Alexander Zedig. You guys need to look at his work. He has a really, it's like he's perfected what a color is, like its grayscale version, what happens in the grayscale stage, and the color stage. And when you look at his work, it looks realistic because he doesn't even need that much of a variation in grayscale, and he doesn't have that much contrast. And when he brings in the color, he brings such a friendly, realistic version of that color that it looks right. You just think that, wow, that looks realistic. How does he do that? That's because he doesn't oversaturate, he doesn't undersaturate, and he doesn't work with super white backgrounds when he doesn't need to. And the colors that surround the colors, the grayscales that are surrounding the color that he's painting, also affect how that color looks to us, and he understands that as well. So if you guys want some really awesome inspiration for where to go with your colors, Alexander Zedig. He is a bit stylized, but those colors apply everywhere as well. They are a bit saturated, just a bit. But that's because he has this really cartoony approach. And again, please make the background lighter by a shade. If these are character designs, you're going to have to do that anyway for your employer. They want a basic gray background, especially if they're going to model it or anything like that. They don't want any gradients or anything, just a super, super plain background. Okay, that doesn't mess around with the colors too much. That, as well as centering the image and the canvas a bit better. Thinking about anatomy. Oopsie. So the head was too small. I mean, too big. I'm not sure I get this pose. Like, it seems more of an elegant pose than if you were doing a character design, you'd want a more aggressive pose. She seems like this is kind of the pose I would give like a priestess or something, or like a lady sweeping instead of a warrior. Kind of looks like haunched for a warrior. For figures, one thing you're going to know about standing figures, why they're so difficult, is making them look like they're standing, so it's the balance of weight. Which leg is getting all the weight that looks the flattest on the ground? Which leg is the one that's getting the least weight? And this is why figures are so difficult. So for you, Seraph, I recommend from now on, please paint with grayscale. Don't worry, you'll get back to color eventually and you will be a lot better at it. If you work with grayscale, you can just focus on the light source and what that does to material and to the object, how to make an object look realistic. She's sweeping her enemies to death. After that, you got a good hold over costume design, which is nice. It's very inspired. Keep going on with that. And of course, you cannot call yourself an artist if you're not studying the human body. I'm sorry, I'm going to say it. You have to study the human body because it's all about humans. Humans want to be the center of everything and they want to be what they draw. Every game has a human in it or something or some sort of animal. And if it is an animal, it's a humanoid animal that can talk and walk. You know, unless you're just drawing an actual rhino, like a game about a rhino. Full anatomy rhino and the poor rhino's life. You know, he has to find a mate and he has to like do a dance and chase after her for like 3 days until he catches up with her and has babies and then he leaves her. But until those kinds of games come out, study a human body, please. Perfect your gestures. The gestures are everything. Okay? And that's it. Today, what did we learn today? Please don't neglect your studies. If you want to be professional, you're going to have to start studying. How does this apply to this painting? How does our theme today apply to this painting? Well, let me point out some things that I feel are incorrect. The head size is a bit too small compared to the breast size and the torso and the thighs. Good job on the gun. Maybe a little bit more edge work on the gun, so I'm just going to sharpen it. I just sharpened it. And composition-wise, the gun leads us back to her face, but her face is so under-rendered that the gun seems like it's the only thing that's important. So you have to render the face a little bit more. Let me go back. So this leads to this. This is in shadow, so I'm not sure why it's in shadow, but the light source I'm sure can reveal some of it. This needs to be lit up. This will lead down to her gesture and then lead down to her thigh and then into the dark spots here. So you really shouldn't have this big dark chunk over here. It's light, so the light is giving the detail an opportunity to be revealed. And you're going to have to start introducing some of that stuff. Don't hide her eyes because that's all we really have of her features. If you do want to give her a hairstyle, give her a hairstyle that's less hidey. Of course, increase the size of her head. Start detailing some areas here. Maybe bring in a secondary light source to help reveal some of the areas in shadow. If you do want this dramatic shadow, you're going to have to start bringing in a light source, secondary light source. Something that'll reveal all the parts of her figure that are not visible. And don't overdo this part, by the way. This is only for the areas that are really not showing up. It doesn't have to be blue, just have fun with the blue. The gesture of her arm is very, very not, it's like it looks bad, as in it's not in the right place. It doesn't look bad because you have the wrong value or anything. You have the right value. Everything is spot on except for the gesture. Because if you think about gesture lines and you do gesture studies, you remember that there's a line work to be done. But what happens with the arm when it's in this kind of position? So if you get the length of the arm, when it comes to arm, there's a great deal of the eye in the CSI. Then you'll be able to know where the corner is, where the bend is proportionately, instead of hoping that the right value does it for you. Because here the elbow is way too low. Way too low. That's where the elbow is, over here. Okay? Thinking about gestures does this for you. You get where the elbow is, where the arm is. Maybe she's leaning on her arm. Where's her other leg? What's her other leg doing? Is it also somewhere in this gesture? She's probably trying to dodge, so maybe make her head a little bit lower. If she's trying to dodge the person who's shooting at her, maybe add some bullets flying to add to the depth, create the air around the object. There's a lot of fundamentals to be taken on here. And when you try to do masterpieces like this, where you lack in study shows right away. That's the whole point of today's stream, is if you don't study and you do a masterpiece and you paint that arm realistically, it's not only going to look realistically unrealistic, but it's going to show sooner. Because if it's just lines, it's harder to find mistakes in line art than it is to find mistakes in a realistic painting. Because if it's realistic, it has the realism in it, and then it looks like an actual deformity, a photograph of a deformity. If it's a line art, nobody takes line art seriously, so they're just like, oh, wow, she has a long arm. Oh, it doesn't matter. It doesn't really show that much. So, to all of you listening to me, all 27 of you, and those who have signed in, those who haven't, and in the future for those on YouTube who are listening, do not underrate the power of study. It's no different than a scientist who studies, or a chemist who studies, or like I don't know, whoever else is out there. For me, science is like the most smartest thing to do, most smartest. It's the backbone of your craft. If you don't study, you don't improve. And some of you sit there and think, how am I ever going to improve? Like, I know I have problems with my art. How am I going to get better? What is going to make me a better artist? How do I get to be a better artist? It's in the studies. I have the answer for you. Okay? It's in the studies, guys. It's in sitting down, focusing on one thing, and drawing it every day for a month. Alright? That's how you get better. And then you do everything else that you could possibly end up drawing. You draw horns for a week, you know? Learn horns. You don't know how to draw hands? Draw hands for 3 months. And perfect them. Draw gestures for human bodies if you don't know how to draw a body very well, or you don't understand anatomy. Study, study, study. Okay? Yes. I'm just giving examples, Jacob. I don't know how long it takes. Every person is different. Their learning style and how they learn is different. We're all artists, so we probably all think very visually. Like mathematically, I have to be visual. I can't just be technical in my mind. There's no faculty in my mind for math. If it's not visual, if it's not like 8 apples times 4 oranges, then forget it. It's not that. It's not that easy for me. So thank you everyone for coming. Thank you Fee, Holy, Ineva, Jacob, Jewel, Jewel Bird, John, Jay-Z, Kuro, Major, Tom says, Milken, Nakitas, Pi, Red Mist, Seraphim, Shadow, Stalker, Sarch, and Yana. Thank you everyone for coming. I hope today has helped you. Maybe it made you consider some different approaches in your techniques and in your schedules. Thank you, and have a great, great day. Bye-bye, guys.